I, female 22, grew up in a family where men prank and tease each other. Ever since my fiance, Tim, 23, and I got engaged, my cousin, brother, dad, and uncle joked about running some tests to see what type of man Tim is. They've done stuff like forcing him to play chess 4 times in a row, secretly slashing his tires to see if he'd fix it himself like a man, or get help like those lazy guys. They'd ask him questions like what joke he'd like to tell his future mother-in-law, his opinions on kids, Jesus, gender equality, etc. They also tested his fishing and hunting skills, overwhelmed him with hypothetical scenarios to test his decision-making abilities and mental strength. They kept calling him slow and soft, but he has a medical condition, asthma, but they think he's making excuses. I demanded they stop, but Dad said this is just typical stuff men challenge each other with and say that I was ruining the fun. Last week, they took Tim on a 3-day trip and hid his inhaler. He left them and returned in 7 hours and told me. I was seething after he said they admitted to hiding it as a challenge. I exploded on them when they returned. Cousin asked if little Timmy ran to me to tattle. I yelled at all 4 of them that they were uninvited to my wedding. My brother freaked out saying it was a prank and they were gonna give it back. Dad said they'd apologize if I insisted, but Tim will have lost the little respect they gained for him and in their eyes will always be the soft college kid who's not up for the challenge. So I called him and the others awful, then I left. My cousin is begging that we talk. My uncle has been quiet, but Dad is so mad and now he's getting Mom involved to get me to reconsider this decision, but I keep refusing to re-invite them. Finally, Mom is saying I'm exaggerating and should let bygones be bygones and not let this ruin my relationship with my family. Am I the idiot for making it my hill to die on, or am I exaggerating? Not the idiot. This doesn't sound like pranking, but more like bullying. Who slashes tires as a prank or messes with someone's health as a prank? They just seem like big bullies to me. In my family, we tease each other, play jokes, and trust me, this is not what we do. Pranking is meant to be harmless fun. None of these are harmless. I have asthma. This wasn't a prank. This was them saying if he would literally die, stealing someone's effing inhaler out in the wilderness is trying to kill that person. They didn't even stick around, so what would he do if he had an attack? This wasn't a prank. Where do they even escalate from here? Waterboarding? Like seriously, do you have any idea what it's like not being able to breathe? They took his inhaler. These people would be as dead to me as Tim could have been, seriously, OP. Just slash their tires, burn their rented suits, and give them the wrong time address and see if they're man enough to still make it. It's just a prank. The relationship is ruined, so why not enjoy it a little bit? Yeah. Not the idiot. Sorry doesn't cut it. What if he had an asthma attack and wanted to see if he was man enough to go through with it without his inhaler? This is so toxic. You don't need them at your wedding. And honestly, if your mother ends up not going, at least she's made her choice and you know that. I'm sorry, but the men in your family have a very toxic view of masculinity. Having a chronic condition doesn't make you less of a man. Your fiancé is a trooper for putting up with them. You are the idiot, op, for not shutting their antics down sooner and continuing to subject him to these bullies. They are clear and simple, and now their pranks have turned deadly. You're supposed to protect him just like he's you, even if that means from your family. Get it together. Honestly, the contact would have ceased after the slash tires for me. I, 45 male, moved into my girlfriend's 25 apartment 5 months ago, and she also has a son, infant, who lives with us. She's a brilliant woman, and I couldn't have got any luckier if I tried. A couple of months ago, I lost my job, so I typically stay home, look after her son, do the occasional housework, and play video games. I've noticed that she has this weird cup she drinks out of, which is quite ugly and malformed. It had paint strewn all over it, and I'm pretty sure it was broken. When friends come over, which is a rarity, they eyeball her when she drinks out of it, uses it, and it's pretty embarrassing. I've asked her if she'd mind not using that cup when friends are here. However, she refused. Yesterday, I was in the apartment when she was at work and I went to make myself a drink. I saw the cup on the shelf and thought that it would just be best to throw it away. It's deformed ugly and there are more intact cups she could be using. I threw it in the kitchen bin, made my drink, and didn't think anything of it. When she arrived home from work later in the day and was making us dinner, she started freaking out. I asked her what the matter was and she said that she couldn't find her cup. I told her that I'd thrown it away as it was ugly, embarrassing, and there were more intact cups to use and she began to cry and started rummaging through the rubbish bin. She told me that her autistic son had made that for her in school a couple of years ago and that it was one of her prized possessions. I tried to explain my view that it was embarrassing, especially when guests were over. She didn't listen and kicked me out. So now I'm at my mom's house as I'm writing this. I try to message her as I don't want my girl to be upset. However, she hasn't responded. I thought her reaction was over the top and completely unwarranted. Am I the idiot? For 0, you are the idiot. Or 45-year-old grown man sitting in his mommy's house whining on the internet that his 25-year-old girlfriend doesn't want him throwing away her personal property. How do you live almost half a century on this earth and not learn the basics of human decency? Also, you're embarrassed that your girlfriend drinks out of a cup her son made her. Are you not embarrassed about literally leeching off someone half your age? Yikes. There's less of an age gap between girlfriend and her son than between op and the girlfriend. Is this even real? What is an unemployed 45-year-old doing bouncing between a 25-year-old mom's apartment or their own parents' home? You have no excuse to justify throwing that away. You are the idiot, op. How is a cup embarrassing? You really should have more important things to worry about at your age. For example, why haven't you matured enough to date someone your own age? You sitting there playing video games and doing occasional housework and waiting for her to cook your dinner is what's embarrassing when friends come over. That's even before throwing away the cup. Dude, you lived with her for 5 months, fixated on this cup the whole time and never once found out that her son made it. I find this implausible, so spare us your surprised Pikachu face. It doesn't even matter who made it though. Throwing away someone else's stuff is not okay. A 45-year-old man should know this. She doesn't need 2 children in her life. Do better. I, 27 female, and my partner, 29 male, had a long day after work and decided that we would have a glass of wine at home. I had a FaceTime call with a friend. Let's call her Lucy of mine, 34. She was with a partner, and we were all laughing over FaceTime. It was about 11 p.m. at that time, and Lucy asked if we wanted to come over for a few drinks. We both agreed, and I said I would pick drinks up on the way over, and I'd see her there. By the time we got there, Lucy was on her own. Lucy let us in and we chatted and had drinks. I had seen on the side that there were 3 empty bottles of wine there from before we'd even arrived. Next thing I know, baby crying. Lucy's infant daughter was upstairs, so she brings her down. I immediately stopped drinking. I didn't wanna drink when there was a baby in the house. However, my partner and Lucy continued. Anyway, about an hour passed by and Lucy said she needed to nip out for 15 minutes and rang a taxi. I asked where she was going and she said she's just gonna meet someone. She'll be back soon. Would I mind looking after her daughter? I said I didn't mind as long as she came back. Lucy left an hour past, tried to get hold of her and I managed to get through. She proceeded to ask me if I could ring her a taxi and said some address that I didn't hear because she was so drunk. I asked her to text it to me and she didn't. I didn't hear from her again that night. 40 calls later and by this point is 6 a.m. and the baby has woken up and is screaming. My partner and I don't have kids, so I didn't know what to do. I couldn't find nappies. She's on formula. It was a nightmare. In the end, we waited until 7 a.m. and tried to comfort the poor baby. She wouldn't stop crying. It got to the point where I said we needed to ring the police. Police came over and tried to contact her and couldn't get through. We managed to contact the father over Facebook. It got to be 8:30 a.m. and I received the message, "Where is my baby?" I told her what happened, asked where she was. Nothing. She just kept repeating, "Where is my child?" The father then came to pick the child up and I explained the situation. The police asked for my account of what happened. We were told to drive home, and if they needed anything else, they would call. The father has since taken her to court, and she hasn't seen her child in 6 months. She messages me now and again from a new number asking if I'm happy, and I'm the reason she doesn't have her child. I'm getting to the point where it's harassment. I've blocked her on everything, yet she still finds a way. I can't help but feel so guilty in case I did the wrong thing. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, op. It almost sounds like her real plan was to go out that night and she invited you over so she could trick you into taking care of her kid all night. And if she can't get even partial custody of her child after 6 months, I have to wonder if there's more going on than what you witnessed. Yeah. It's a little strange that she would need to meet someone in the middle of the night, like when she's drunk, and has a baby in the house, but you didn't get her baby taken away from her. She did. Leaving someone to take care of her child while she runs off for the night doing who knows what is not okay, especially if she isn't gonna pick up the phone. I don't know what she was expecting. I'm not saying there are never bad decisions made in child custody battles, but I feel like this wasn't the first time she's done something like this if the court decided not to let her see her child at all. Usually, a parent would at least get supervised visits. A really big thank you, Op, for having done the right thing, for putting daughter into hands that really care for her. Friend put daughter and her well-being into your inexperienced hands to leave the house for a few minutes, so friend could get drunk as a skunk. Friend wasn't able to say where she was as you finally got hold of her. For friend, it was more important to have fun doing God knows what without any thought for you and her child. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. Agree. Every time she finds a way to message, you could message back that she lost custody of her child because getting drunk and partying was more important to her than her child. Maybe it will actually sink in and she'll get her act together. But whatever her actions, you did not cause this, she did. I, 40 male, recently lost my father, 76. I have 2 siblings, my twin brother and older sister, 44. We all grew up together in my parents' house. It's a large multi-story 5-bedroom house worth almost half a $1 million. My father's will stated that his assets, cash, house, etc., would be divided equally among the 3 of us. While in town for my father's funeral, I asked my siblings when a good time would be to meet up about putting the house on the market. My sister told me there was no need because my father had sold the house prior to his death. I was confused because he was still living in it. My sister went on to explain that my father had been sick for years and was deep in debt, so he needed to sell the house. Of course, that would be a complicated undertaking with his health as poor as it was. So my sister and her husband bought the house so he could continue living there for free. I was stunned. When my father died, he only had about $120,000 in liquid assets. Her story made no sense to me. I demanded details. She said that the mortgage lender would only approve them for $375,000, which is far less than the house is worth. My dad spent the other $250,000 paying off his debts, paying for treatments, and maintaining his quality of life as my sister put it. So basically, she's telling me my inheritance is $40,000 and no more while she gets that plus a house. I called her a thief that took advantage of our father when he was vulnerable. She basically pocketed the difference in the house's value out of my inheritance. She got really mad. She told me that she and her husband have been struggling to pay 2 mortgages for years while raising 4 kids, not my kids, not my problem, and getting no income from the second house. But that was her choice, got a house out of it. She started yelling at me and crying, so her husband intervened and took her away. I turned to my brother for support, but he just shrugged and said he couldn't find it within him to care about a house after we just buried Dad. I miss Dad too, and I hate fighting with my sister, but what she did was wrong. I've reached out to a lawyer and I'm planning to sue my sister, but I'm nervous. I know this will permanently fracture my family. I just want what's rightfully mine, but is it worth blowing up my sister's life? Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. The rest of your family is grieving while you're over here crying about your inheritance. You're selfish, entitled, and greedy. You cannot inherit property your father sold even if you don't agree with the sales price. He made a considered decision to accept a lower price for the benefit of living in the home for free, having cash to use as he pleased, and having support in the form of his daughter who actually seems to have cared about him, not you in other words. You are the idiot. Your dad was sick and in debt. Your sister and your brother-in-law took on another mortgage to purchase the house from him. They let him live rent-free and allowed him to repay his debt. Where were you in all this? It sounds like you're only after a payday. Not the idiot. Sister needs to make a full accounting. It's suspicious that she didn't tell anyone, and Dad's will wasn't updated. Op said she bought the house for significantly less than market value. In this housing market, a home that size would sell for a substantially larger amount of money, and free rent for a short time does not offset that. If she has nothing to hide, she should welcome an investigation. But right now, someone needs to make sure she didn't con a sick old man out of money. It's also suspicious that Op never asked if his dad was doing okay and then showed up to the funeral asking for money. The house may be worth half a $100,000 now, but it's not specified when the sister purchased the house. Since the house has been in the family for 40 years at least, there's a good chance that it needs some significant updates and repairs, which would lower the value if it were to be sold on the open market as is. As long as he was mentally sound at the time, the sale of real estate is well documented, not really open for dispute. I'm the mother of a young girl. My ex-husband has her stay with him every second weekend of the month. She's wanted her ears pierced for a long time, but I think she's too young. I've told her she could get them done when she's 10, but it doesn't stop her asking. When I picked her up last Sunday, I found he'd gone her ears pierced at Claire's of all places. I got really angry. I won't deny that I asked him why the heck he'd done this, and he had no right to do so without consulting me. He told me she's old enough to get it done, and she asked him that as she's his daughter, he had a right to do this with her. I just don't feel like I can trust him anymore if he do this behind my back. I grounded my daughter for the week for asking him when she knew she wasn't allowed, but she's a child. He doesn't have that excuse. I'm not sure I want him to have her overnight anytime soon, and I'm planning to consult my lawyer over this. My family thinks I'm overreacting as it's just earrings, but I honestly feel I can't trust him as a co-parent anymore. And it's even worse that he took at Claire's, which has a horrible reputation for their piercings. Am I the idiot in this scenario? Am I overreacting? You are the idiot. First off, you punish your daughter for asking her other parent for something when you said no. Seriously, what kid doesn't do that? You're going way overboard taking away your daughter over something like her piercings. As far as getting her ears pierced at Claire's, well, I got both of mine done at Claire's. It was fine. If I got another one done, I'd probably go to a tattoo parlor or a piercing salon, but it's not the end of the world. She's not a possession, which is how you're treating her. If you don't want something for her, speak with your ex. That's how co-parenting works. Not letting your kid get a permanent body modification treats them as an object. What are you talking about? If anything, the father is treating her as an object since he did zero research before permanently modifying her body and got it done at a place that is known to be incompetent, dirty, and dangerous. Op has full custody and ex-visitation, which makes her not the idiot in this case, as he had no right to make this decision without talking to her first. I don't like that your ex made himself the good guy here because it showed your daughter that he doesn't have to work as part of her team or be the co-parent. It also sets up a bad precedent because later on, well, mom doesn't let me do X, but dad will become a very real thing. You're not the idiot, and he needs to be reminded that even though you're not together, he has a responsibility to model good parenting for his kid and show cooperation and mutual respect.